a comment when you're listening to the music that they're beautifully playing, that most people don't realize that the city on the hill is a reference to Jerusalem, just about always. And it's a very big religious context. You see it a lot in the writings of the Jewish sages. Well, shalom. For those of you who do not know me, I am Rabbi Ken. For those of you who do know me, I am still Rabbi Ken. This is the summer visiting clergy series, and I am visiting clergy. But it's funny, I don't feel like a visitor. It seems like I was just here only last week. Okay, let's let those few people who don't know about the joke in on it. I am an ordained rabbi, and my wife is a Christian and has been attending the Manhattan Beach Community Church for her entire life. I come here with her to the adult discussion group and services on Sunday. I get a chance to pray and learn and have a conversation with some very nice and spiritual people. And I get a free cup of coffee with a bite of donut to boot. The clergy this summer have chosen a chapter each in Barbara Essig's book, Crazy Kinfolk. Now she spells crazy with a K. It looks like a cartoon spelling. Reminds me of a Yiddish term, and that's Meshuggah and Mishpucha. Let's see who knows that here. Meshuggah is in common use. You've heard it, it means crazy. But it can be affectionate. And Mishpucha is extended family. This congregation could be referred to as an extended family. And those who could be the crazy kinfolk, you know who you are. Bible shows us that multicultural families have been around for a long time. In the Bible, Joseph, a Jew, marries Asehah, that's the way it's pronounced, an Egyptian woman, and they raise two sons together. Later, Moses marries Zipporah, a Midianite or a Cushite, or both, and again raises her two sons. Those were multicultural families. In the book, Barbara Essig says, the success of multicultural families lies in the capacity of adults to communicate and negotiate cultural differences. To me, it seems that today, with an open society where one does not only live with people just like them, they live with all sorts of people. Multicultural families are becoming more the norm than the difference. Each new family unit is more in the world is more or less multicultural. You see, every little family has their own twinge, and when they bring two of these twinges together, you end up with a new, unique family structure. Now, in preparing for this, I wanted to get a clear definition. It's better to know where you're supposed to start. So I looked online for multicultural family. Well, everybody has their own definition, and anything you want to use probably will work. It refers to differences in religion, ethnic group, national and regional origin, children from different parents, including adoption and stepchildren, sexual orientation, and more things different interest groups have thrown in. The term multicultural family is used to express almost any difference in family members and difference from the norm, whatever the norm is. Judy and my family, well, is it multicultural? Judy, my wife, is a Christian coming from generations of community church family with some Catholic thrown in. On the other side, Methodist. Me, I'm Jewish from Russian Jews on one side and Jewish from Russian Jews on the other side. I guess I'm redundant. With my mother's accent, being from Del Rio, Texas, many people have thought through the years that we were Jews from Texas. Judy was raised at the beach here in Manhattan Beach, and I was raised at the beach in Yuma, Arizona. Yes, we had a beach in Yuma. We just didn't have any water. And I think we might be multicultural. Our extended family has Catholics, including a lay priest, fundamentalist minister, a Methodist minister, and a rabbi. Oh, that's me. There are also vegetarians and meat lovers, requiring at Thanksgiving 2 types of mashed potatoes, with and without dairy product, and turkey substitute made from tofu, as well as the real thing, turkey. There are those with different sexual orientation. There are family members living and from all parts of the country and many parts of the world. And in our extended family between us, we have people with various types of surnames, including Hispanic, Danish, English, Scottish, German, and even Jewish. Oh, me again. People often ask me how my parents accepted a Christian daughter-in-law. Very well. When I brought Judy home to meet my family, my parents took to her immediately. They found Judy someone who fit into the family, and they appreciated her understanding of our religion and who we were. And they accepted and appreciated her spiritual values and religion. And in many ways, there's not that much difference in a great number of ways. My father, of blessed memory, was won over when, among other things, on her second visit to my parents, Judy baked and brought a gift of homemade fresh braid bread, a recipe she had baked for several years. She called it German braid bread. It was bread, however, known to Jews as challah and used for the Sabbath celebration. It turns out that Judy's recipe was the same as my father's mother's recipe. That's the way to get in good. Brought back memories of his mother. Actually made him emotional. My father then hoarded the 1 loaf of bread. He gave us each a little piece and kept the rest for himself. And a tear came to his normally stoic face. The next time Judy came to visit him in Yuma, she had to make several loaves of bread. On top of that, we were 3 brothers in our family, no sisters, even had a male dog. And Judy, my mother of blessed memory, finally had another woman in the family. My mother felt comfortable with Judy as family and friend. They would visit, and Judy and my mother, and sometimes Judy, my mother, and Judy's mother would go shopping. And they'd take me along to drive and park the car and carry the packages. If we had a discussion over where to go for dinner, my mother would say, "Do what Judy wants, she's always right." Sometimes I felt like I reminded my mother that I was her offspring by blood, not Judy. Times were different in 1967. It was impossible to find a minister or a rabbi to marry us, a Christian and a Jew, or allow us to use their sanctuary even. So Judy and I were married by Judge Raymond Choate, now deceased, of this congregation, in a hotel, in a large banquet room, ballroom. It was a very large affair. Today, many rabbinical and ministerial associations allow interfaith rights, and there are even guidelines for co-officiated. Both the rabbi and the minister are priests conducting the service. After looking at the definitely multicultural value of our family, yep, I'm qualified to talk about multicultural families, which I have been doing. The Bible scripture reading this morning, Numbers 12, 1 through 16, starts by saying that Miriam and Aaron, the sister and brother of Moses, began to talk against Moses because of his Cushite wife, for he had married a Cushite. Moses' wife was Zipporah. That family was multicultural. In the word Cushite is the Anglicization of the Hebrew, which is Cush or Cushy. And here it refers to, in the Hebrew, a dark-skinned person. It may refer to Ethiopians or other black Africans, or possibly a dark-skinned Middle Easterner, including Jews. And in the idiomatic use, Cushy can be used as an endearing nickname. But that's not the case here. Aaron and Miriam are jealous of Moses' relationship with God, and they mean to be hurtful to Moses and his wife Zipporah. In this case, it becomes akin to using the N-word. For speaking against Moses and demeaning Zipporah, the anger of God was kindled against Aaron and Miriam. God punishes Miriam with Sarah, a skin disease often mistranslated as leprosy. It may have been a disease that only occurred in the desert for religious reasons. After Moses intercedes for her with God, it takes 7 whole days, a week, to cure Miriam. This Bible passage is often properly used as a basis of prohibitions against malicious gossip and jealousy, especially in the family, and it makes a strong statement that God does not like racism. In my reading of the Bible, this passage makes it clear that racism is not acceptable in the eyes of God. It's that simple, no questions. What type of wife was Zipporah? For the greatest Jewish prophet in the Torah? Well, in Exodus 4, 24 and 26, before the incident with Miriam and Aaron, God was so upset with Moses that God was going to kill Moses. Why was he upset? Because Moses had not circumcised Eliezer, his youngest son. Now, in Judaism and in the Torah, you will find that circumcision is the sealing of Abraham's holy covenant with God, a contract for all time for all Jews. Moses has failed to do his Jewish duty. Well, Zipporah, the Midianite woman, his wife, the Cushite, takes a knife and circumcises their son, saving Moses' life. She does the Jewish ritual that Moses should be done. What type of a Jewish wife did the Midianite woman make? A very good one. Because of my experience in interfaith marriage, and at the same time being a rabbi, interesting multicultural situations are brought to me. People come to me for advice on weddings, adoptions, dealing with children interfaith marriages, second marriages, funerals, and situations you'd never anticipate. I cannot go into too much detail on any of these because they all involve some confidentiality. But I have sat next to a Jewish grandmother and whose fingernails were digging into my skin as she held on tight while her 4-year-old granddaughter, not raised Jewish, was receiving a baptismal rite. This grandmother thanked me for being there and found it very pleasant, and is still a doting Jewish grandmother to her Christian daughter, and will always be a doting Jewish grandmother. And they're fun to have, except when they pinch her cheeks. Another one is an individual who came to me, a couple actually, early in the morning one morning at my door, got me out of bed. Our daughters engaged, going to be married. That's nice. She's been living in New York and we're going with this guy. That's nice. Do you like him? He's a nice guy. We're happy. So I asked my Catholic friends, finally, wondering what was going on, if I should put the coffee on. Why are you here this time of morning? Isn't this a little early? And they had not realized. They had gotten the call from New York. This was happening. And I said, well, what's the big deal? He says, well, she's been taking conversion lessons and she's going to be marrying an Orthodox Jew. And I said, does that bother you? He says, no, but we just don't know what to do. Should we send a card? For years, I have advised them on wedding traditions, on baby namings and circumcisions and bar and bat mitzvahs. And now my friend could teach a class for other Christian grandparents of Jewish kids. It was a pleasure to do that, and they were so joyous. My grandfather of blessed memory and step-grandmother on my mother's side were the only grandparents I ever knew. The others passed away. My grandfather was from a small Jewish village in Russia, while Oma, of blessed memory, his second wife, the only grandmother I ever knew, although she was not really my grandmother, was a wonderful grandmother. She was from Berlin, Germany, and a widow. Well, let me tell you, at the turn of the century, Jews from Berlin considered themselves to be quite sophisticated, a little snobbish, some people would say. And Jews from the small villages in Russia, by anyone's account, were peasants. One of the few things I ever heard my grandparents disagree about was whether to drink tea out of a glass or a cup and saucer. You see, German Jews thought that drinking tea from a glass was one of the most peasant-like things one could do. Oma, Yiddish for grandmother, one Yiddish term for grandmother, called it peasantry. Now that's a term I think pretty sure she invented. To Russian Jews, a real relaxing treat was to have a Glasl Tee mit Mandelbrot, Dunkin', a glass of hot tea and some twice-baked almond bread to dunk. I remember starting about the age of 8, when I was 8, my grandfather and I would play cards. He would play gin rummy and cheat a little bit. After a bit, he would quietly, sneakily go into the kitchen and make 2 glasses of steaming hot tea, then bring them back to the den with Mandelbrot slices and a bowl of hard candy. While playing cards, we would Dunkin', some of the hard bread in the hot tea glasses, and then take a piece of hard candy between our rear teeth and drink the hot tea, which picked up the sweetness from the candy. and he would tell stories about his youth in Russia. I'm sure that in that house, my grandmother Oma had to hear us, and as much as she disliked it, my grandmother, she let my grandfather savor the flavor of his tea and let him savor the moment with his grandson, sharing with his grandson a memory of his small Russian village, something I will never forget. I have no doubt that my grandparents loved each other. One would not think of them as a multicultural family, but my grandparents, both Jewish European immigrants of the same age, were multicultural. Every family has its own multicultural, individual ways. Today's family are, as I said before, more multicultural because we associate with people of differing backgrounds, and we have more exposure to others. Families are combining more diverse cultural differences than ever before. This brings more cultural differences to the larger extended family and other groups. Barbara Essex puts it very well in her book, Crazy Kinfolk, when she writes, the God I have come to know loves diversity and lays out options for people. So I affirm families of many different stripes and celebrate them all. Your framework for seeing the world and its families may be different than mine, but that's perfectly fine. I say, with respect, appreciation, acceptance, love, and God's blessing, the growing number of flourishing multicultural families will find ways to handle problems and obstacles. Then we can savor the flavor of our differences. This church has been a wonderful, accepting place, an extended family for Judy and myself, and for other multicultural families I have met here. You have done a great job of including multicultural families, no matter where they are on their spiritual journey. Thank you and shalom.